this crazy, turbulent, uncertain world, we have to drop this shibboleth of 2% of GDP as a
Correct.
defense budget
Right.
and seriously think of a decade of 4 to 5% investment in defense to build up that capacity for this century. The first thing that we really need to do is we need to stop treating businesses as milking cows and start looking at businesses as the architects of modern India. There was one economy that was $4 trillion. That economy had a per capita income of $2,600 per capita. That same country was to bail out Greece and Portugal and Italy in the next 5 years when they had a financial crisis. And that same $4 trillion economy in the next 10 years was to become the number one trading partner to over 100 countries. That country was China in 2008. That country is India today in 2024.
Welcome to the Growing India podcast. Thank you so much, Samir, sparing time from your grueling traveling schedule.
So Monica, first let me thank you for inviting me.
You know, I was a child when the 71 war broke out. I remember that. We were in Delhi and I remember the blackouts. I remember the sirens. I remember the rumors that the Pakistanis have poisoned our drinking water supply. I remember the terror. What does the war do? People need to know, to an economy, to growth, to infrastructure.
Is war a devastating political action? It is. A means of politics which is gory, which is bloody, which leads to all sorts of losses, both lives and property, and of course, in India's case, it may have implications on its economic trajectory and its trade and partnerships and lots of consequences. So war should be the last resort. And I'm not sure many of us understand the seriousness of choosing that political action, right? So I'm not saying we should not be prepared for it or we should not be able to exercise it when everything else fails, but it should be certainly the last political decision step that we take. It does not mean that certain measured aggressive action, muscular action, cannot be taken to address certain political means, objectives that you seek to achieve. However, once those are taken, the escalatory ladder can surprise you. And how soon you escalate would be a consequence of the other side and some other factors as well.
Whether
so you are no longer in control.
Whether it's a 6-day or it's a Russia-Ukraine, we
Correct.
don't know.
You don't
right?
know
We
whether
don't
it will
know.
be a limited border conflict.
Correct.
Like most of India-Pakistan conflicts have been in the past, or can it be a full-blown, persistent, never-ending conflict that we will all be seeking off-ramps for. So I think we have to be a little careful in going down that path. On social media, it is fashionable to bay for blood and to seek conflict, because like you said, none of us have seen a real war since 1971. And many of us...
Those of us old enough to remember are terrified.
I mean, to be honest, I'm a 71 born, so everyone knows my age now. Yeah. I was born in 1971.
Now they also know my age.
They also know your age. But I was born in 1971 and I have never seen the conflict my parents' generation have lived through. Donating clothes, donating
Gold.
Supplies, donating salary, donating, contributing. So I think while it is easy on social media to conduct a war, it has more real world implications on all of us that we should be mindful of. And that's why I always tell people, perhaps you should read, perhaps you should watch documentaries rather than Instagram reels. You should perhaps get a sense of conflict from a more real perspective to make up your mind. But I do not for a moment believe that India should allow any assessment in the neighborhood or beyond. We are now a global actor, and I hope we're going to be discussing that. But for example, 1/3 of all Indian homes have Argentinian cooking oil in the kitchen, right? If we are going to have acreages for rare earth in South America, which is going to shape our energy requirements for the future, we are now a country that is implicated by South America. We have our largest strategic partnership with the Americans. We have our oldest partnership with the Russians. We have a very complex relationship with China. from New Zealand, from the Pacific to Peru. We
Right.
are literally now an actor present everywhere. So for us, we have to make sure that no one in the world assumes that we are either reluctant or incapable of taking some tough political decisions, of exercising sovereignty, sometimes in its most extreme form,
Right.
while acknowledging that we are sensible, rational actors,
Right.
and who will, in many ways, use all other means possible before
Right.
choosing this action. So we should not be trigger happy, but we should not be seen as a country without muscles. And I think that's the
Right.
balance
So-
we need to strike,
Yeah,
right?
right. So just like the Pandavas, basically go
Correct.
on trying to avert war, but if it is inevitable, then you do what you have to do.
Then we have to excel.
You are all in.
Then we have to develop
Yeah.
capabilities of being decisive actors
Correct.
when it comes to conflict.
You think we are?
Fingers crossed. I don't think we have spent enough over the last
Okay,
20 years.
right.
I don't think we have spent enough. We have a depleted Air Force fleet. We have vacancies still to fill in our armed forces, in the land forces. We have a navy that I believe is fairly competent in the
Right.
neighborhood. But as our power projection grows and as our exposure to the global landscape that I was just trying to explain becomes more expansive, our blue water capabilities need to be invested into. So I think as a country, I think we have to also, in this crazy, turbulent, uncertain world, we have to drop this shibboleth of 2% of GDP as a
Correct.
defense budget,
Right.
and seriously think of a decade of 4 to 5% investment in defense to build up that capacity for this century. Have we been doing that? No.
No.
But to be fair, we have decided to lift hundreds of millions of Indians to better state of living, and we have spent a large amount of our national resources in building infrastructure, in signing a free trade agreement with ourselves, of creating a GST framework or a national,
Right.
a single economic
Yeah.
unit. Even those are incomplete projects in some sense, but we have made bold strides in the last 10 to 15 years of transforming this country. Essentially, I think one of the areas where we need to now focus in the coming decade, knowing that the neighborhood that we live in is not the one we would have chosen had we been given a right
Can't
to design.
choose family
We
or
can't
neighbors.
choose, right? So because of the neighborhood we live in, on both sides,
Right.
we need to think about really ramping up.
So this whole guns versus butter, that's classic economic debate. We've gone for roti instead of guns. I think that part is fairly
and I
secure.
think if we do it sensibly,
Yeah.
if we do it sensibly, the process of acquiring those muscular capabilities could be an economic activity in itself, and
correct.
could be providing us butter as well.
Right,
So I think
right.
we now need to focus on a productive and efficient military industrial complex, which has private participation, startups, entrepreneurships, the dev tech sectors, and the space tech sectors, and the cyber tech sectors. We really need to look at the neighborhood, spot the business opportunity in building the capacities to rebuff the bad actors who we are surrounded by.
Is there a policy thought in this space that
You know,
these are the points where we can actually do both guns and butter?
I think the policy thought is there. I think the political leadership has understood this. I think we have not necessarily fully embraced it.
So that's the first question. As an individual, what do you do with this problem called China? And then strategically for India, can you imagine if India and China were actually, we were different, we were not
Adversaries.
the adversaries. Could you imagine the Eastern Bloc that would be created? Is that, it's never going to happen, right?
Look, China is the big question of our times for India. I mean, for the world generally.
For the world.
But look, none of them have a 4,000 kilometer border that we do, right? And in that sense, China is both a clear and present danger if that relationship goes south, and it could be a huge bountiful of opportunity if it goes north. And I don't think that we should lose hope on the latter, even as we prepare for the former.
Yeah.
In some sense, if you ask me what should be the principle of India's China policy, my answer would be simplistic but true. We need to have political muscularity to rebuff Chinese expansionism, and we should have nimble economic embraces that should be able to grab the Chinese opportunities. So in some sense, our policy paradigm has to be at the cleft of political muscularity and a warm economic embrace. How do we maximize both of these? Strengthen ourselves and make ourselves capable of exploiting the economic flows that could shape us. Now, the balance of trade, we have a $100 billion deficit with China, we have a $80 billion positive with the Americans. There are consequences of economic realities of different geographies, and we should not necessarily over emphasize these differentials.
Okay.
Trump is as worried about the deficit with many
I will come to that.
as we are worried about the deficit
Right.
with China. We have to find ways of creating codependencies, and it is not going to happen through the same flow itself. We'll have to create other sectors or other domains or other possibilities.
Examples?
For example, I think one of the biggest mistakes we made at some point of time was to not have $100 billion of Chinese investments in India. If I have a $100 billion trade deficit, I should have had Chinese money locked into India's economic future, and that would have been, for example, my safety net vis-a-vis Chinese behavior. I don't have, in many ways, a Chinese equity invested into my future.
Skin in the game.
A skin in the game. So I needed some of their skin in my game, and I don't have that, right? So I think it need not be based on just the trade flows. We could create codependencies in different ways. So I think we have to now start thinking about those 4 or 5 or 6 sectors where they are interested, we have a need, and can we build some of those capabilities? Can we have Chinese enterprises? Because luckily for us, Chinese enterprise is largely the enterprise that belongs to the Communist Party of China.
Correct.
So therefore, there is no private money in China. It is the CCP money that is going to come into your country, and that allows us to leverage their in many ways stakes in our future for our benefit. If you look at India's own future, there are perhaps 3 most important aspects to its economic journey. One, we are going to be greener than any large economy ever. We are a greener $5 trillion economy than ever was. We are going to be far more sustainable in our approach to 10 trillion, and we are going to be the first green 15 trillion giant. Now these are all forward-looking statements, but I hope we achieve these. But I don't see any other way, right? So our green transition is our economic offering. Our digitalization and our technology platform and our digital future is our economic offering, right? And our youth and therefore the young knowledge economy that we must invest into is the only industrialization that is going to be sustainable for India's future. We are not going to build mass manufacturing. We keep talking about manufacturing. Yeah. Our manufacturing is going to be boutique, it's going to be high-end, it's going to be sectoral. But our largest industrialization is the 4th industrial revolution or the 5th industrial revolution, which is based on the human mind and its ability to work with machines and artificial intelligence and other emerging sectors to create better standards of life and existence for peoples of this country, right? So all 3 of these have Europe as an important ingredient. Our earliest forms of industrialization were fueled through our partnership with Europe. So if you look at the oldest companies in India, you would find they are normally from North Europe or West Europe.
That's
right? And I have no doubt that the most important technology partnerships for the future would be what India builds now for building green hydrogen capabilities for space tech and for defense tech and for certainly it's key industrial sectors. It's going to have to lean on Europe again.
Like I said, we've become the BFF of the whole world suddenly. And there was a minister who recently really set the internet on fire by saying that our startups are good delivery boys and girls, but they're not into high tech. And then there was a barrage of pushback saying that, but you know what, you don't making doing business easier. There's corruption. We are really sapped by corruption, which is pervasive, which is everywhere. From the lowest municipal guy to whoever, there is a problem with that. So, what is this opportunity? Are we going to let it go? Because we do have this opportunity today. The world is changing, the rules are changing, and we are mired by this old bureaucracy, the judicial activism, and corruption. So where does this go?
Look, I followed that debate, and I was quite actually taken up by some positions that were expressed during that particular conversation. I think what was said about India in the last century is still valid. Everything you say about India is true, and the opposite is equally true. So that debate actually, in many ways, was interesting, manifestation of this reality. That yes, we have built technology services that are very rudimentary, but it is also true that the same country landed on the dark side of the moon. So to belittle our scientific and innovation progress can be clearly countered by facts. But it is also true that we have digitized the low end of value
But isn't
creation.
that how it begins?
But it is the journey of everyone.
That's right.
We love to be offended. That's what I'm saying. No, we right to offend and right to be offended. We like both of it now in India.
Yeah.
We take offense on everything. Anyway, I'm not speaking for anyone who said it.
Sure.
All I want to say is that I will be the positivist here and the possibilist here. For me, I think the challenge and the gauntlet of that statement made by a political leader was that let's think bigger. Okay. And I think there is nothing wrong in urging us to be more ambitious and not sit on our laurels of accomplishments and rather be hungry for more. And I would take it in that spirit. And I think we have done a lot. Our scientific temper is established by some achievements. Our full realization of our scientific capabilities is certainly not being tapped into. So we are a glass half full. We are a glass half full, and we now need to do three things.
Difficulty of doing business, the corruption.
Yeah, I'm coming. So now we need to rethink three things. One, I think we still have a business unfriendly political system. So in some sense, the first thing that we really need to do is we need to stop treating businesses as milking cows and start looking at businesses as the architects of modern India. It is, I'm going to be unpopular in the political class. India is not going to be built by the parties of today. It is going to be built by the enterprises of tomorrow.
By the 25-year-old who's doing a startup.
The enterprises of tomorrow.
Absolutely,
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
It is the enterprises of tomorrow that will be the makers of modern India. It will not be the parties of yesterday who are going to be shaping it. So in some sense, we have to have a new entente. Point number one. A new agreement between businesses and the political class, which see themselves as co-travelers in the journey towards a very prosperous India. Very similar to a more informal agreement that was reached in our freedom struggle between businesses of that time.
And that they can
and the
do
political
through voting, donations. Like how do you exert your desire for political change?
The good news is, and here I think I see a silver lining. I don't think the political class wants to do that. They still want a subservient enterprise sector. That is a very feudal instinct that continues to reside in us.
Correct.
However, the good news is that as we have moved from $400 billion in 2000 to 4.4 trillion in 2025, in the 25 years, as our economy and our footprint has grown 9x, our institutions have grown barely by 2x. So which basically means increasingly governance is now going to happen outside of government, and the political class that is the owner of the government is increasingly going to have to lean on what's happening outside.
Happening already.
And the decentralization of governance is going to change the nature of the relationship between enterprise and politics.
Okay, so last we'll wrap up with something that you want to say to them. This generation who's inheriting.
Should know.
We are going to hand the baton over.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what. Say when I was in my middle 30s, and many of you in the next decade are going to be at that space. There was one economy that was $4 trillion. That economy had a per capita income of $2,600 per capita. That same country was to bail out Greece and Portugal and Italy in the next 5 years when they had a financial crisis. And that same $4 trillion economy in the next 10 years was to become the number one trading partner to over 100 countries. That country was China in 2008. Right. That country is India today in 2024.
Absolutely.
Over $4 trillion, $2,600 per capita income. In the next 10 years, India would have changed the lives of citizens in India, but in 100 other countries with how they engage with them and their economics and political system. You are going to shape the world. 21st century would never have had a more consequential story than India, and you are the story. Write it well.
Wonderful. On that note, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thanks, Manu.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing. Please read the risk disclosure documents carefully before investing in equity shares, derivatives, mutual fund, and or other instruments traded on the stock exchanges.